Hello and welcome back to the Double One Radio Gamescast. It's episode number 57. As always, I'm your host Ryan, and I'm joined by my lovely cohort of co-hosts, Alex.
Oh boy, hi there everybody.
Oh god, Brett.
Hello.
And Wyatt.
Yeah, hi.
The energy level is just steadily declining. I love it already.
Well, didn't I do Carl last time?
You did do Carl last time, yeah. You had
I
to
figured
mix
I
it
had
up.
to
Is
do
this,
another
is this going
voice.
to be your thing now? You do a different cartoon character at the start
Maybe.
of every...
Yeah, until we get
Okay.
swatted by Disney immediately upon him saying one word in impression.
You guys hear a helicopter?
I hear someone knocking at my door. Huh, that's weird.
All right. We got some stuff to talk about this week. We didn't have a lot of news to talk about, and then today happened.
No kidding.
And we got some big news to talk about. So, there's a few things we're going to hit on. First, the topic for this episode is going to be that your favorite game's overrated. And what we mean by that is that every game is overrated, and we're going to talk about a few of them. This doesn't mean we hate these games. In fact, many of them will be games that we love. But being overrated is not mutually
For Brett.
exclusive. Brett,
Brett's just looking for
Brett's just gonna hate all the
Get a
games.
rise out of me.
Uh,
That's what he's looking for.
like Brett and I are both, we're going to list Breath of the Wild, just so you know, everyone in advance,
You're
Breath of the
spoiling
Wild
it.
is going to be overrated. And
spoiling
Brett and I are both going to agree on that, but it's probably going to be for very different reasons. So, I can't wait to see what happens.
pain.
First of all, though, we've got some news. So, I want to start out with some information about a little studio named Toys for Bob. And Toys for Bob is a studio that's worked on a lot of more recent Activision games, namely Crash Bandicoot 4. Now, there's been a bunch of rumors. We don't actually have a lot of facts on this yet. We have rumor mill information that Toys for Bob has been a fair number of layoffs has happened. The issue with that is that the games industry is an industry where layoffs are often just seen as a bad thing, and it could just be people leaving after Crash Bandicoot 4 was completed, right? Like, the games industry is very transitory, so people might have just left if the game they were working on is complete. We also don't have layoff numbers, so it's not really... We don't know. Activision claims there's not been a reduction in personnel, so... Again, we don't know fully on the story yet what actually has happened, but this is indicative of a bigger shift in Activision Studios, in that almost every Activision studio right now is working on Call of Duty.
And
Nearly
none
all
doing
of
a
them.
Good job.
This might be later in the news, so I'm not going to say it.
Specifically Warzone. Warzone is the big one that everyone's working on, the Battle Royale. So it's a little sad to me because Activision used to have like tons of properties that would come out constantly. Like, they have a backlog of some incredible games, and they just haven't really been bringing it lately. Their games list is a little bit sad more recently. It's mostly just Call of Duty. So yeah, it's a sad time. The age of MechWarrior has passed.
Can I just ask real quick, what's the current install size for Warzone at this point? I'm curious.
It's a lot.
Hold on, I'm gonna look it up right now.
Yeah, you can find the number while I'm looking at the rest of our stuff, but
Because I want to point out
it is a lot. Warzone is very, very popular. But yeah, in 2010, Activision has not done a huge amount of stuff in the 2010s plus. So compared to the late previous years, I can't use English.
Former.
Former years, their former productions. Look, at least the first game they released in the decade of 2010 is Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. So at least that's how they started.
Now.
The game.
The game.
There was a game for one of the worst movies based on a book
Followed
I have
up
ever seen.
Very quickly by Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 on iOS.
Based.
Oh baby.
So,
oh baby.
yeah, this isn't to say Activision's had a bad run, because they're doing extremely well. It's just a lot of their larger properties like Guitar Hero and Marvel Ultimate Alliance are significantly less popular now. Or even Guitar Hero, I'm sure, would still be super popular. They just haven't made something in a long time. and Ultimate Alliance is relegated to the janky Switch version, which is still a lot of fun, but not amazing. And then, of course, we've got the Crash series, which is still kicking around, but I think it has lost a lot of its old appeal, at least with younger gamers, as it were, because they're not as familiar with the Crash character. So,
By the way, they actually reduced their file size on PC by about 30 gigs as of March 30th. So,
out
So now
of
it's only
250,
3,000.
I'm just saying, it's an improvement.
So you only have to buy 3 Xboxes to actually fit.
when I can fit Warzone on a hard drive, then I'll play.
It's
Don't
crazy
even
how it's
bother.
that big of an install size for Warzone.
A single
Yeah.
hard drive for a battle royale game, too big
Probably
to ask.
one of the more like
Two.
infuriating battle royales out there. Like
And that's saying something.
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's weird to think the last like huge release for Activision that was like original is Sekiro and Crush Team Racing. Those are like the last two.
I forgot
Big
they
properties
published
they released.
Sekiro.
Sekiro was from Activision?
Yeah, Sekiro is published by Activision.
Publisher.
Oh.
Yeah.
And after
Of
that,
course,
it's been a
because
lot
they
of
own
Call
everything.
of Duty, and then Tony Hawk's
They're-
Pro Skater, which was incredible.
They're the
They lost
Disney
their-
of video games.
And they also lost their best franchise, which was Destiny, which is the best franchise, and then they lost it.
And
because it's the
moving on
best
to the
franchise.
next piece
All
of
right,
news.
it's great. So yeah, the bigger part of that story is just that Activision is refocusing a lot on Call of Duty. The thing I did actually want to talk about very briefly with this is that this isn't necessarily a bad sign. It's Activision, so we're never really sure. Activision's a little unpredictable. They tend to be a little bit more consumer friendly than a lot of publishers, but again, we will see how they act in the coming year. But when studios are restructured like this, an example I saw used was that Ubisoft Assassin's Creed Valhalla had almost every single Ubisoft studio listed in the credits as having worked on it, and people were like, well, this is a bad sign. The game is taking so much stuff from everyone else. The reason for that is that the studios are working on like very separate systems that are meant to be transported to different games. So like the water engine in Valhalla is an engine they're using in more than one game. A lot of those elements that they take and like how their animations are handled and whatnot is stuff that's credited in all those games because it's stuff that is made to be used across multiple titles. Like games aren't just one and done generally with using back-end assets because like it's so expensive to make a game that you kind of
And
need
then
to try to keep that stuff around.
And then on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, we have the Elder Scrolls series.
Of just using everything they have for so long. So yeah, this doesn't necessarily mean that. It could just be that the Activision studios are all contributing small things to maybe the Call of Duty engine or something like that. But we won't know until we get more information on this, probably from Jason Schreier. So just like to bring that up. All right, we got some more news, Brett. I'm sure you're ready for this, but you had something you wanted to not spoil.
I already forgot what it was.
Well, great.
Sounds really important.
Perfect.
That sounds incredible. Okay, so a long time ago, we talked about Epic versus Apple happening. We finally have updates on Epic versus Apple. The updates is that the case finally started.
Yay.
Today, actually.
Oh my god.
Early this morning. So the court proceedings have officially started. We have a timeline for things. The next week is going to be Epic's calling witnesses, which is going to include like the CEO of Epic and a bunch of other administrative people and some people talking about like ethics in games and whatnot.
Wait, they have a whole week for that?
Yeah, it's a whole week for that, and then Apple gets
Ace
a week.
Attorney taught me you only have 3 days.
Well, for smaller trials, that might be true, but like this is huge, so it's a lot of proceedings happening here. Apple gets the week after that, and then the third week will be like final arguments and closing statements and whatnot. So a lot of stuff is going on with them, but we have a timeline, and we're getting some interesting information from these Epic v Apple proceedings because there's a lot of things that were private information that are now becoming public because of this court proceeding. Because obviously these court filings are public. So one of Apple's arguments about, or one of the concerns people had about Fortnite not being on iOS was that it was the biggest platform for Fortnite. Turns out that was wrong. It's PS4. So
Really?
it is
PS4.
PS4, which is an interesting thing. So iOS revenue was, here's the number. Yeah, PlayStation 4 generated 47% of Fortnite's total revenue from
Oh my-
2018 to
oh.
2020.
Oh.
Xbox One
Wow.
then generated 28%. iOS was fifth with 7% of the revenue.
Wow.
So they
that
aren't
is
taking that
surprising.
big of a hit. And then the remaining 20% is split between Switch, Android, and PC. So this is interesting to me in that it is an assumption that I think everyone had that is very wrong, which is fun.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's almost like that brings into question like motive in the first place, because like I feel like all of us thought that, oh, this makes sense for Epic to make such a fuss because Apple must be their biggest, like place that they get their revenue from for Fortnite.
I mean,
But now
I've been
it's
questioning.
fifth.
I've been
So
questioning motive
why?
from one. I don't know. I mean, not that I suspected that specifically, but I don't know.
I
It's
think
just-
could legitimately mean one of two things: that Epic is actually interested in opening it up for everyone, like trying to get the Apple Store to have more developer-friendly practices. But it could also be a situation of like Epic is just strong-arming iOS. It's weird. This is a thing that's very strange.
See, I would definitely say they're like trying to strong arm iOS if like revenue from Apple's platform was bigger.
But
than it
legal
was.
fees
The
are
fact
going to
that
be
it's-
more than they probably would have made at this point. Like,
Things are about to be very interesting.
I legitimately think this trial is going to be far more expensive than them just having not done anything, which makes me think that there is like a legitimate reason behind this. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. We'll see how this turns out in the next month. It's fun to see this long planted little seed of fun little news finally sprouting.
The plans, they're coming to fruition.
They're finally happening. All right. We made it. Brett, did you remember? I want to give you a chance here, but
No, I legitimately, I don't even think I said something. I think you're making it
or was
up.
it Alex? And I misheard who it was.
Oh, it may have been me.
Oh, Alex, go
Um,
ahead.
Are we? I don't know. Is that gaming news? They're Microsoft.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, say it.
Yeah,
It's tangentially related. It's interesting.
Bill and Melinda Gates are getting divorced.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's about
actually-
what we have to say on it.
I'm here to bring you the news in bite-sized, easy to digest snippets and stutter all over it.
I do have a tiny bit of news as well. We finally heard some details about the Battlefield game we've all been anticipating since Battlefield
right.
5 initially came out. Battlefield Mobile for your phone.
Oh,
They did
No,
make
that
it
wasn't
very clear that this is not the only thing they're working on.
No, but I mean,
because they knew that if they didn't,
It would be Diablo
hell to
Immortal.
pay.
I will give them this. They did not invite thousands of people to this big convention
Yeah.
and then announce that and not Battlefield 6.
Yeah.
So they are doing better than Blizzard. It feels less like a April Fool's joke, but it's still kind of funny.
I'm sorry, I misremembered what it was. It is something somewhat interesting and having to do with Activision. That's what. Rumors are that I think it was either it might have been the next Battlefield. I think it's the next Call of Duty.
If it's activated,
They-
that's Call of Duty. Yeah.
Yeah, they already have ratings in for it, and they have a recovery plan already in the works because it tested so poorly.
Jeez.
Oh boy.
No.
You know, it makes me a little bit more confident that they have said they're working on it, right? That they're at least working on it. Hopefully, it's just COVID-related delays and whatnot, but we'll see what happens.
I mean,
yeah.
well, here's the thing about ratings for Call of Duty is that it's such a big franchise with so many people that like their fans all want completely different things at this
Yeah.
point because they've tried
Yeah,
everything under the
absolutely.
sun. So it may have tested poorly with certain people because it's like going in a more defined direction than the other ones have.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
we
one of
don't
the things. I still have yet to, unfortunately, source this information that I've heard. So take it with absolutely a
Yeah.
grain of salt. But
because I mean, speaking personally, like Modern Warfare, it's probably like the 2019 version. It's probably my favorite Call of Duty, and that one wasn't, you know, loved by everyone either because it was trying a lot of different things for the series. So I don't know that it means a lot of different things. I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and we have
Oh, look at-
very little information on this, so it could totally just not be true.
look at this
But
man
we'll
talking
see.
about the exact opposite of overrated games.
All right. There was one other thing with Activision that I forgot to mention, in that Bobby Kotick, the CEO of Activision Blizzard, cut his salary and bonus by 50%. Now
Good.
he's
Now do another
still
50.
making a large amount of money. So his base salary is essentially $875,000 now.
He didn't do that out of the kindness of his heart. He did that for publicity.
I mean, once you're making $875,000 a year, like, what do you need, right? It's the kind of thing where
the
you're
man
making
already
enough
had
money.
enough money where he didn't know what to do with it, so he was like, I guess I'll just give it back to these people that actually do the work around here. I don't know.
And Kotick has reduced his salary a couple of times in the past, especially during COVID. So I do think this is probably at least partially legitimate desire to kind of help fund Activision, although the rumors of layoffs and whatnot are a little bit more sketchy. So yeah, take this with a grain of salt, but it is a much smaller salary than most other CEOs that in companies of this size. So
Gonna
So
be
that-
having
step
a
in the right
sodium rich. We're gonna be having a sodium rich diet tonight.
now he still
All the
can get a
grades of salt.
bonus of up to $1,750,000.
Yeah.
So not too much credit to this man because it's still a lot of money, but yeah, it has been changed. All right, we did it. We got through
Somehow.
the majority of the news.
And without people gouging eyes
I don't want
out.
to say all of it because I know there was something else that happened today that's going to come up by
Oh.
the end of the episode.
We never time these right for news. It's
It
never-
always happens that either during the episode something is going to come out. Oh, right. Yeah, it did. I completely almost forgot to mention that Discord's partnered with Sony.
Oh my
What?
There
god!
you go.
I totally forgot about that.
Furious.
My brain is
scrubbing
such a
through my
mashed
notes.
potato right now. I completely forgot about that, and we had talked about it like half an hour ago. or
Well,
however
you know
long.
what? At least it's not Microsoft.
Yeah.
Discord's Skype version.
I mean, this isn't better or worse because we have no idea what's actually going to happen. With
To be
this
honest, I'm
network.
really curious as to what Discord's goals are with this partnership.
Yeah.
Because Microsoft, to me, yes, for console sales and whatnot, it might be a slightly less opportune thing, but you also have the entire like PC ecosystem. And if Microsoft was pushing Discord as like the communications platform for PC, for like stuff outside of just gaming, I think that would have been a great opportunity for them. At the same time, Discord's doing fine. they are not
Well, I
having
think
any issues.
yeah,
I will
I think
say,
to do
too-
that, wouldn't Microsoft also need to include like FERPA compliancy things? With
Probably. I could see like a Discord Slack equivalent being made.
like, separately, not integrated into the.
Yeah, I would assume it would be like a replacement for Microsoft Teams or something.
I will say too, one thing that could be very beneficial out of all this is if we get some kind of like PlayStation Discord app so that you could talk to people on Discord on like a console and not have to rely on, the default chat system.
Well, that's heavily
So-
implied to be what they're doing. They stated that the teams are hard at work connecting Discord with the social and gaming experience on PlayStation Network. And the goal is that early next year, friends, groups, and communities are supposed to be able to like hang out and play games together using Discord
See,
on your PS5.
Now that is great because Discord has needed like a console app for a very long time.
And PlayStation has needed
Yeah,
a
PlayStation
party
needs
app
it.
for even longer.
Xbox has like a passable party experience. PlayStation has a real bad one.
It might as well not just
Well,
be
I mean,
non-existent.
Yeah.
yes, they
honest.
do, but also a lot of PlayStation's core and flagship games are single player.
Right,
but
So I
yeah,
get the use
but-
of it, but it's also not really along with their style, I guess I'd say. But they are trying to, branching out, and there are multiplayer games on.
Oh yeah, well
more
there's tons
COD is sold on PlayStation than on Xbox, and that's
And-
just one multiplayer game.
and it's like we just said in the previous in our news segment, right? I mean, the biggest platform for Fortnite is
PlayStation.
Is
PS4.
PlayStation, yeah.
So
Yeah,
it just makes sense. And
it's
look,
just
even
pushing
if
that.
and look, even if you're not playing a lot of multiplayer games, you can still talk with buddies on Discord on your PlayStation while you're playing like a single player game. There's still that convenience factor there as well.
Maybe someday Nintendo will catch up.
And this is also coming out
I'm not holding my breath.
alongside some other news related to PlayStation that we've been hearing rumors that some studios were forced to pay royalties to Sony to allow crossplay.
What?
So
What?
the crossplay shenanigans that went on, we're hearing rumors of this. It's not, to my knowledge, confirmed yet because this is literally like information's coming out today. So it's hard for us to guarantee that this is actually what's happening. But yeah, that is a heavy rumor that's been going on.
Oh, I haven't.
We do have proof now. I just found it. So there's more tweets, breaking tweet news. Sony has a cross-platform revenue share that basically gives a 5 to something % to Sony for PS4 revenue share or for cross-platform. So
that is aggressive.
Wait, Epic.
annoying,
Epic is bad at Apple and not Sony.
Well, this presumably happened more recently, and it's also this is a thing that's really hard to probably clarify and whatnot with all the legalese surrounding these kinds of issues, whereas the Apple Store stuff is very visible to the consumer.
Oh,
yeah, it's interesting that this is kind of what they're doing. It seems like primarily this was intended for Epic in Fortnite, because Fortnite was making so much money at the time. I feel like Sony probably just thought they could get a little bit of moolah on the side. But
what if you gave me some of that green? See?
Yeah, so the words they use is that the revenue is to offset the reduction of something. Offset the reduction in revenue from enabling crossplay is the wording used.
Yeah, okay.
So this is just very sketchy all around.
That's
It's an interesting situation. This is just weird. It's not the kind of thing you expect to see from the games industry anymore. And yet, of course, crossplay is seen as negative by certain people. All right, great. Are we ready to play a game now?
Sure.
I do have one thing.
Oh,
I'm
Brett.
sorry. I have a thing that I did remember this time. My brain decided to work. I thought it was a rumor, but it's not. Konami was going to be at E3, and then they pulled out, and they're not in it anymore. So,
well, I mean, Konami famously pulled out of Hideo Kojima's career, so I really think it's the phrasing there was a little bit accidental. No, to look back at the sentence I just said. This is why we record these episodes live.
Capture those comedy
So
nuggets.
when Konami famously pulled out of Hideo Kojima's career, I think they really separated themselves from games news in a way that they really haven't done anything.
Yeah.
In a long time. I mean, they've done stuff, but none of it has really been high profile. The interesting thing here is that because they had announced they're going to work at E3, that makes me think they're working on something big.
Exactly. Yeah.
but it's just not there yet. Like, I'm thinking this is a situation where Konami believes they have something huge, is what I think. And for whatever reason, and by whatever reason I mean the pandemic, they're not going to be able to make E3. So it's an interesting situation. My theory is that it's probably got to be something related to, like, I could see it being a weird Metal Gear license thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's got to be one of
no.
the big ones.
It's going to be a big title.
Metal Gear
look.
Survive
Whatever
2.
you want to say about Konami, they have handled the Metal Gear license without Kojima in such a graceful, respectful way.
That's sarcasm, right?
You're insane.
Thanks, Wyatt. Speaking of
Never
overrated,
speak again.
There was a little bit, maybe a tiny bit of sarcasm there.
I mean, yeah. So Konami,
Okay.
I'm going to run off a few of their. Go ahead, Alex.
I'm sorry, I just still legitimately can't tell if that's sarcasm or not.
It's sarcasm.
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
100%.
I'd be a little concerned if it wasn't. So Konami's got like a very small. They've been releasing less and less recently. For example, their PlayStation 4 games list primarily consists of a bunch of Japanese-only games. Metal Gear Solid 5, the different forms of Metal Gear Solid 5, and then Metal Gear Survive. Super Bomberman R, the remaster of Zone of Enders, and a bunch of classic game collections. That was all of it.
It's like nothing new.
There is nothing new. There's a couple licensed Yu-Gi-Oh games. There's Mantis Burn Racing, which apparently released only physical in Japan. So that game doesn't exist.
To make money?
Yeah, that's a pretty sad list of things from Konami. So I'm excited to see whatever they were holding back. Maybe it'll be fun. Maybe they are given. There were rumors that the Metal Gear license was up for grabs, and there were negotiations happening. So it could be that announcement might be partnering with another studio to actually make a new Metal Gear thing, which would have me a lot more excited than just Konami working on something, because they don't have the best track record right now. But yeah, that's our Konami news. Now let's proceed to forget about them and play a game.
Mm-hmm.
Please.
So, I don't know if any of you know, there's a little known band named Sonic Youth.
Wow.
All right?
Where is this going?
They were active from 1981 to 2011. Okay? Now, what I want you to do, I want you to give me the best, or the most underrated studio album from Sonic Youth. All right? And I'm going to start listing off names until I get to the name that I know is going to win.
Am I the only one here that isn't you that's listened to Sonic Youth before?
I've never
heard of these
even know who
people.
you're talking about.
So,
It's a fever dream.
we're going to...
I'm very confused.
This show's a fever dream. Their first studio album. This is going to be 1990s studio albums from Sonic Youth. They've done more, but we're limiting it to 1990 because there's 5 of them.
So are we just going to rate it on how much we like the title?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Okay, cool. The most underrated album. From having never listened to it, just by title alone.
Oh my god.
1,000 Leaves, 1998. Washing Machine, 1995. Experimental Jet Set Trash and No Star, 1994. Dirty, 1992. Or Goo, 1990.
Oh my
I'm sorry,
god.
you said we're going for the most underrated.
Just tell me what name you like the best, Alex.
Goo. Goo. Goo!
I didn't even realize that they had an album called Goo, and it's the album cover too. It's the album cover that you see all over.
No.
Oh my god.
It has to be Goo.
Yeah, if you can't tell, this entire thing was a ruse for us to bring Goo back into the mainstream.
Exclamation point.
Because what I was going to do is Goo's most underrated games, except you literally cannot find what games Goo as a studio worked on anywhere in the internet because they existed for so little time that it is near impossible to find any information about them.
My god.
It's bonkers. They don't even I don't even think they have a Wikipedia page. Yeah, they don't. They do not have a Wikipedia page. So
Because their name is Goo.
Do they need a wiki page? They're known worldwide. They are Goo.
of course they are. You know, I'm sorry, Goo, but you're the winner. Sonic Youth, you have been reduced to Goo exclamation point advertisement.
You've been demoted to a 001 radio inside joke. Congratulations.
I mean, we are the Sonic Youth, you know what I mean. We're using microphones, and we're technically the youth.
Oh, shut up.
That's enough. We're so old just for saying that. Oh my god.
Right.
It's like we're like 35 now. Oh my god.
I see the
You just
varicose.
added 40 years onto all of our pages.
I see the varicose veins immediately popping up on my arms and legs.
Well, you know what else I see popping in the very near future is Wyatt's veins as he realizes we're about to talk about how every single game he loves is overrated.
Do we need to get out of the way that when we talk about a game that's overrated, we don't hate it, and or this is also just
Yep.
our opinion?
Well,
No,
I
because
started
that's
with
not
a
always
disclaimer.
true. That's not always true. Sometimes we do hate it, and everybody else likes it.
Well, it doesn't. Okay,
But
doesn't
sometimes, not all the
necessarily
time.
mean-
And
sometimes,
I
not
know.
all the time.
The disclaimer
worth
we
saying
need to
all the
actually
time.
put here is that we're going to be talking about a lot of games that are either highly reviewed or people tend to like. Because we say they're overrated does not mean we don't like them or think people can like them. You're totally valid in liking whatever games you like, even if
Yes.
they're the worst trash fires on the planet.
We don't
because
feel
it's
any
entertainment.
particular way about you if you like a game that we think is overrated. I don't care.
Unless
No.
you
A lot-
really,
like-
really like playing Anthem.
Like I told Ryan,
I know someone. I know someone that likes Anthem, like
Like,
Me
unironically.
too.
like
It's
I
really
told
bad.
Ryan
It's really
about
sad.
this before. I know a lot of mine are based off of almost solely personal bias.
That's
Well,
allowed.
speaking of which, Alex, I don't think you've gotten to start one of these types of episodes
Yeah.
yet. So I want you
Oh?
to kick us off. Start the fire. Begin the cage
Oh.
match.
Ding, ding, ding!
Oh, ding ding indeed.
I don't like the way that was.
Say-
Just go. Maybe this is why we don't. Just
Say
have
your
you start.
overrated game,
Go.
Alex.
Just
I'm
go.
sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. Overrated game. First one on my list here is The Sims.
Explain yourself.
It was. I'm not even sure. It wasn't the first of its time. It's there are just so many more interesting mechanics that you can do when you aren't dealing with people who say ooblety gooblety.
How much of this is about to be based on how stupid they sound, Alex? Tell me the truth.
that was the only bit. Really, I think it for a simulation game. I really think that it's go big or go home. You don't deal with the micro stuff so far as people's individual lives. You deal with stuff with like natural disasters and things that are incredibly satisfying, like we've talked about in our most satisfying game episode.
Yo, Alex, I gotta come swinging for you here. This is the first cage match roundup. I
Oh,
think
boy.
I'm the only person in this entire podcast who has played and enjoyed The Sims.
I've played The Sims. I have not enjoyed them.
So I got a history with Sims 3. I've been playing Sims 4 a little bit recently. And while I agree with you to some degree that the Sims franchise is slightly overrated and really just needs a competitor, you're misunderstanding the concept of The Sims here. The Sims isn't about the
You just don't get it,
bombastic
man.
moments. It's about making sure that you've got the perfect little things and then watching the dominoes fall, right? It's a domino effect. It's the same misunderstanding I think people have, including myself, with wrestling. Now, Brett, when I was a little dumb boy when I was a child, what I would do is I would see my grandfather watching wrestling and go, "This is dumb. It's scripted." As a dumb little doo-doo boy child, and then I would go watch Power Rangers. So there's no difference between Power Rangers and wrestling, fundamentally. And there's no difference between
There's
The
just more
Sims
skin in
and
wrestling.
playing with a dollhouse, right? It's satisfying because all you're doing is you're stacking these little creations you've made and you're just watching them clash into each other. It's great.
You can say playing God. It's 2021. You're allowed.
Well, no, because playing God is about
This is a
Peter
good
Molyneux.
Games podcast.
It's
only
about
Peter
Peter
Molyneux can have the God Games market.
God us. I think playing God definitely refer. Well, no, that's not true. I was gonna say it just refers to the more bombastic moments like natural disasters. But yeah,
But I agree, The Sims
yeah,
is
those
overrated.
those little those little you say all that just to agree with me? What?
Well, because I disagree with the reason you think The Sims is overrated. That's the disagreement. I don't disagree with you that The Sims is overrated.
I could also be completely misunderstanding what overrated means. I'm very smooth brained, you know.
Overrated is it just gets too much credit for whatever reason. It gets too much attention. We want it to be taken down a peg. This is an episode to be slightly mean, not really mean,
Oh.
but slightly mean.
Okay, the other ones on my list are much more deserving of that.
It's a turn that's immediately antagonistic, like right out of the gate.
And again, I do need to make it clear because we are game developers and many of us are looking for jobs. If we mention a game that you like as an overrated game, it's more a commentary on the industry as a whole not doing things better. So
Yeah,
if you
and
really like
and
The
if you-
Sims, we still love you.
if you feel passionately about a game that we talk about, that's great because you're getting something out of it that we're not, and I'm happy for you, legitimately. Like no sarcasm whatsoever.
See why the
I'm
more
happy.
you say no sarcasm afterwards, the more sarcastic it
No,
sounds.
no. I get it.
I have trouble with voice encoding. Why you can't do this to me? I don't understand
As soon as I said that, I know how that sounds. But legitimately, all goofs aside, like if you like a game that we mention, like more or something like that, like more power to you. Like I'm legitimately happy.
I
For you.
still
right.
don't believe you.
Brett,
Yeah, well, I don't expect you to believe me, Brett.
it's your time. And just so people know, I'm keeping a general time of these to make sure we're
Yeah.
not staying too long on one thing. So
Right.
Brett,
That makes sense.
your chance is here.
I'm going to start off small because I know I have a real big hitter with someone else. Then I'm going to wait for them to bring up first. So
Oh, I
I'm
can't
going
wait.
to say that out of all the Call of Duties, some of them get a lot more love than they deserve, and I don't think before Cold War came out, I don't think I've had as little fun playing a shooter game than I did while I was playing Modern Warfare 3. That is not a fun game, and it is so annoying to play. And people, because it's from that era, it's from the classic, you have Uno Xbox party chat saying the worst things to each
no.
other era. People think of it so highly, and maybe it's just because it has that it's part of the Modern Warfare trilogy from that time, but man, it just sucks. It is not a fun game to play at all.
I don't feel as strongly like against it as you do. I do think it's very like forgettable as far as CODs go. Like it really doesn't do anything to stand out.
I
at
didn't
all.
even know
It's
there
like,
was a Modern Warfare 3.
yeah.
Really?
I
mean, there you
vaguely
go.
knew it, but like I try to keep track of Call of Duties, and then occasionally one will just slip by me. I think it was
Is it
probably
weird that
around
I,
the
like-
period where like I got back into Black Ops 4 for a little while. So
It's so sad to me that I can name all of them, and looking at like screenshots, I can mostly tell them apart. It's so sad.
I'm not sorry.
it's nothing to be sorry about, but it is something to be concerned about.
Yeah, that's a good way. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, no, I'm mostly there with you. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's very like forgettable and throwaway compared to like other
Yeah.
and others in the series.
And I think the multiplayer specifically, it's like it's frustrating. Like it's just it's. I mean, I complain, and be really like super hyperbolic about like, oh, what the hell? I just killed that guy. What he spawned behind me? But like literally, that just happens in Modern Warfare 3. Is just the maps are so small that people are spawning inside of each other, and the guns
It-
all kill each other in one bullet. It's
It was
insanity.
definitely the beginning of like the downfall in map quality. Like
For
it
sure,
was
yeah.
the beginning of that era of like 3-lane garbage for every
Yeah.
single map and with no variation, just tiny claustrophobic garbage.
It's so gray and sad.
Welcome to
Yeah.
Browntown.
Welcome to Browntown.
Yeah, no, like definitely.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
anything else you want to gush about loving Call of Duty, Brett?
No.
I was a little worried you were going to
don't-
say Modern Warfare 2019, and then I would have had to
No.
have stepped in. But
I had a fun time playing that game, so I can't be upset at it
Mhm.
yet.
All right. We ready for the controversy to start? Because, Brett, I'm going to come out swinging.
All right, then I
Here we
got
go.
your back.
I'm going to come out swinging with Breath of the Wild
Yep.
is not just overrated, but the most overrated Zelda game.
The most
Absolutely.
overrated Zelda game.
Yeah, Legend of Zelda game.
Yeah.
Now, I want to preface this by saying I would probably give Breath of the Wild a 9 or a 10 if I were actually reviewing it. Brett wouldn't.
No, I would
Brett does not agree with me. But I think Breath of the Wild is a wonderful physics sandbox that's in the wrong franchise. Because it leaves out so many elements of what I would come to expect from Zelda. And playing through Breath of the Wild recently, because Wyatt and I were on that kick of playing Age of Calamity, and that made me want to go play Breath of the Wild, so I went back and played it. Breath of the Wild's story is like really bad.
Yes.
And the voice acting is like really bad. And now I'm a little bit less hyped for Breath of the Wild 2 after having gone back and played it, because I don't think Breath of the Wild has aged as well as a lot of people think it does. I still think it is probably the best example of how to do that kind of like physics sandbox scene. I think Immortals Phoenix Rising came kind of close, but didn't quite hit the mark to what I like in those kind of maps.
I would also argue that's probably one of the best launch games like of any system. Personally, it's a really strong like heavy hitter as like a launch title for a system.
I agree from a marketing standpoint. I don't necessarily agree from gameplay. I think Switch was missing at the start pretty heavily a narrative focused system seller. The kind of thing that you've come to expect with like console launches. And I say that, but most consoles haven't had that because those games are super hard to make. But something like Twilight Princess on Wii.
I totally get. Go ahead, Alex.
Octopath Traveler wasn't a release title, right?
No.
Switch?
It was close to release, but it's also a pixel JRPG.
Yeah.
It's multi-platform now too.
I do love Octopath, but it is not what I would consider a system seller.
Too niche to be considered.
It's no knack, is what you're saying.
It's no knack.
Exactly.
No,
someone gets me.
What I was gonna say is that I totally get where you're coming from, where there isn't enough like Zelda in Breath of the Wild. Like I totally get that. It didn't bother me personally because I had only played one Zelda game. I'd played Link Between Worlds, which is an excellent game, by the way. I'd only played that leading up to Breath of the Wild, so I wasn't like missing those Zelda elements because I wasn't really like trained in it. You know what I mean? So I think the lack of those didn't bother me nearly as much, but I do totally get what you're saying.
Well, like that's only
going back and having played more or having at least the knowledge of more. I get it.
I think what makes it overrated is that Breath of the Wild tends to get, at least when it released, I think the opinions kind of become a little bit more mellowed out over the years, but when it came out, universal praise for nearly every aspect of the game, right? Like, that was the reception. And I think that's where things went a little wrong. Because, like, when I say I would give the game a 9 or a 10, that's based almost primarily on just how much fun I tend to have when I play it, which is a lot, because like it's a very, very fun and enjoyable game. But I think there are elements of it that have not aged as well and probably didn't deserve as much credit as they got when the game released. Now, Brett, I know you feel a different way about Breath of the Wild.
I've had your back up until this point, but it's time for the tag team to break apart.
Can I just say
the faction to die?
Can I just say that I'm very worried how close both of these guesses have come to my other two entries?
Well, if there's overlap, just jump right in. I think is what we're getting at. Because Breath of the Wild is one of mine as well. So that's why I'm allowed to say something too. I didn't enjoy playing it at all, and I didn't, to be fair, didn't get too far in it. But like, I know what the loop is for the rest of it, and it was so unfun to me that I do not want to play the rest of it. And I don't like it. It just fundamentally disagrees with me. Like, I do not like the controls. I do not like the loop that is in the game, and I like other action adventure games, and I like other Zelda games, and I like games that people all of a
Things
sudden
that
start.
aren't Breath of the Wild.
It's things that people start screaming at being a Breath of the Wild clone because they have an open field with grass in it that you can walk in and the sun is
That's
shining.
annoying. That
And
is
I literally
very annoying.
like I don't understand.
Yeah.
I
Dude,
don't
I
get
remember
it.
people calling Ghost of Tsushima a Breath of the Wild clone. I was like, what
Exactly.
is happening?
It's frustrating.
I remember
And it's
when Genshin Impact was coming out. People
Well,
were
Genshin
like,
Impact
Breath of
actually
the waifu.
has more elements of Breath of the Wild, having
But
actually
still,
played it.
it can't be that.
Genshin Impact is a lot more similar because it's specifically designed to ape Breath of the Wild. Like you can do a ton. There's a ton of physics interactions. There's a lot of like weird manipulation of things. Yeah, Genshin Impact is anime Breath of the Wild. It does everything Breath of the Wild does, but a little bit worse. Not like to a degree where it's bad.
Gotcha way.
And in a gacha way, which is it's why I stopped playing the game. But yeah, Genshin Impact's a different situation. I think that one's a little bit more justified than the Tsushima comparison.
Yeah, especially because it doesn't work for other examples, but it helps that it looks pretty similar. But like it's at the Persona point with me, where it's just any other game or thing that takes place in Japan, it's like just giving me some serious Persona vibes. Shut up! Shut up! Just shut up! It's just any game that has. It's just like anything that has a village that you can visit, or like a world that you can explore, even if it like came out before and it's like, oh, this feels so much like Breath of the Wild. Like just play another game, please. Please just play another game. My God.
Diversify your portfolio, for God's sake.
You've beaten it how many times? Your phone is full of messages from your mom asking where you are because you haven't said anything in months. Please just play another game.
Speaking from personal experience, are we, Brett? You seem to know a lot of the subject.
Well, I do have to agree with Brett for one final thing that he mentioned. I do agree that the problem with Breath of the Wild's game loop doesn't really evolve over the course of the game in a permanent way. It evolves in a lot of small ways in a lot of different places, but there's never an addition to like the core loop that really changes how you play. Because every situation you're approaching with that puzzle box design, but that means you don't really get the satisfaction of, like in Phoenix Rising, for example, unlocking a new combat move or something. You don't really have that moment of, ooh, I got the progression. Not every game needs that, but I do agree that that's a thing that Breath of the Wild kind of, especially because the durability means if you get like a cool weapon that functions weirdly, like a boomerang, it's basically useless because it's going to break instantly.
You get all the gadgets right at the beginning, and you just upgrade them through time.
Yeah. And that was the big thing for me, is that like I finish the plateau and I start exploring the world, and I go like, okay, there's gonna be like more than this, right? And then I like start like talking to other people and just like, oh, all the dungeons are the same.
Well, wait, yeah, wait. Imagine if you like start out with maybe one gadget, and you had to go to the Gerudo area of the map to get the bombs,
Like a video game, almost. You're just describing a normal Zelda game that has progression that's placed out across the world, and they still could have done that, but I wasn't ready for it to not do that, so that's why I stopped, and I probably will never play more because
That's
there's
quite a
better
sentence
games
you made
to play.
there.
Oh my God, my
I wasn't
eyes are
ready for it to
twitching
not
from
do
this.
that.
All right. Now, Wyatt, you've been sitting quietly.
I have been.
Not really, but
not fuming. No. I've been pretty like okay with the.
So Wyatt, I really want you to come in swinging. Brett isn't agitated enough yet. I really need Brett to be agitated, and I hope you have something for that.
I'm gonna start with one that I want to start with something that I don't think will step on your guys' toes. I think it will for a lot of people, but not for
That's
you
the
guys.
opposite of what Ryan just said to do.
I know, but I don't want to start that way. I don't know. I'm feeling.
People want to see a cage match, Wyatt.
Today. Well, I mean, this might piss off a lot of people. My first pick. Can I say my pick, please? Thank you. My first pick is Half-Life 2. I feel like I've talked about this before. I played Half-Life 2 a little while ago for an assignment. I was supposed to be kind of picking apart some of its design elements and stuff like that. And it was the first time that I had played the game in a long time, and I was thoroughly unimpressed just because I don't think because it's held up as like a masterpiece. I think that for the time it was incredibly impressive, especially from a technology standpoint. I would make the argument that it really has not aged very well. I think there's a lot of levels that are not very well designed. I think the way that the narrative is handled is not done in a way that's very engaging, and I think a lot of the weapons aren't super useful either. Um, and sometimes, and then sometimes the level design uh, was just not that great for it being this like timeless classic that I guess apparently people think of it as. So
Wyatt, you came in so ready to not step on toes, and I really have to commend you for failing in so spectacular a manner. Because
My God.
I love Half-Life 2. Not actually, I'm playing it up a bit, but
He says through tears.
I say through
Clenched
tears
teeth.
streaming down my eyes.
The podcast
Yeah,
is
I think
over.
Half-Life 2 is one of those rare games that has aged very well. Surprisingly. I still do think it's a little overrated, but more in the sense of it became a meme rather than I think an actual thing people wanted. Or at least Half-Life 3 at least. But like Half-Life 2 came out in 2004. You can still go play that game
What?
today and think that it doesn't look that bad. It's got some really, really cool weapon designs, and stuff like the gravity gun is just super entertaining. It's got a lot of elements that just weren't present in a lot of shooters and kind of still aren't. And I think the key thing is that Half-Life 2 is not meant to be a fast-paced shooter. It is more of a slow-paced kind of thriller ride than a pure go murder things shooter. And it doesn't do everything perfectly, but I do think it's one of the better aged games, especially the sounds. I think of those. I almost said the Covenant, the Combine blasts and whatnot are all still sounds that are kind of
there are
engraved in
some
my mind.
things. There are some things that have aged well. I think it's still like it was a very good looking game for the time, and it doesn't look all that aged. I'll give you that, and the sound design was also very good. But I don't know, man. Like I think I've complained to you about the Nova Prospect level where you have to set up those stupid turrets in those really tight hallways, and it's just this like claustrophobic mess of people running around and fire going everywhere. It's just a very poorly designed.
I think Half-Life 2's
area.
levels are phenomenally designed for someone that is smarter than most people and has more tolerance for weird things than most people. Because yeah, I do agree. There's a lot of like levels in that game that are fun conceptually, but don't work in gameplay as well as they should.
Oh yeah, I mean breaking out a prisoner and then setting up a bunch of turrets to use against security guards in theory is awesome. In execution, it was an absolute like slog. Like it felt like if you're trudging through snow in the middle of like a snowstorm and it's like knee-high snow. Like that's what it felt like. I hated every second of that segment.
I do gotta say a lot of levels are also too long. That's something I consistently had an issue
Yes,
with.
the pacing is not great all the time.
Wyatt, you're allowed to be mean. I
It's
feel like
so
you're not
hard.
being
What
mean
they
enough.
want. Give the people
You
what
can-
they want.
You can say a game is terrible, just garbage.
well-
Just
Well, it's the kind of game where like I really don't think it holds up nearly as well as a lot of people think it does, but at the same time I don't want to like take away from the fact that it kind like what it did for the industry and how big of a deal it was when it came out, because it was a big deal and it was like so ahead of its time in a lot of ways, especially its physics engine. But I just feel like it's kind of a weird, clunky, awkward mess to play these days. Like a lot of the weapons just I didn't feel like were all that useful, like I said before. Yeah, I don't know. It's also I got to talk about story for a second. It's got two things that I hate. It's got a silent protagonist, and it has sequences that allows the player to just walk around and fuck around and do stuff that I'm just not Like I get that it's giving you that freedom while people are talking and doing other things, but especially if your character isn't participating in any way and people are just talking at you, it's very like immersion shattering. You should just walk around and be able to like jump on people's heads and just mess around with stuff while people are trying to talk to you. And I
See,
just don't like the way the story's delivered.
This is where Wyatt and I are very different people, because I love being able to jump on people's heads while they're talking and still get the full story experience. I think that's tremendous amounts of fun. And I am livid that you called Gordon Freeman a silent protagonist. Gordon Freeman is the silent protagonist. Wyatt, the silent protagonist.
That just makes me hate him more when you call him that, but okay.
That's the point. Right. Alex,
trying to stoke the flames.
Alex, please save us from this
I
Half-Life.
think I'm just so tired that like I just can't be mad at people or anything.
You got mad for a second when we interrupted you over and over again.
I drained his last bit of anger out.
That's all. That's it. That's all I had.
Alex, what do you have? What's a game you've got that please will make me very angry?
That will make you very angry? Shit.
Just makes me feel anything.
Oh no!
I need to feel emotions, Alex.
I think you broke Alex.
I'm literally looking at one on my list, but I'm still going to go with Call of Duty now.
Oh,
Which one?
all of them.
Which one?
Every last one of them. All of them. All of them deserve to burn. They have done nothing for the first-person shooter genre. Not in story, not in gameplay, not a goddamn thing.
I disagree with its impact on first-person shooters, but there are many games that are overrated.
Oh, it's had a lot of
so
impact.
many things that can replace Call of Duty.
Alex, it's had a lot of impact, just all negative.
You have Battlefield, you have Modern Warfare. All of those are also garbage, but I'm not going to bully them right now. I'm going to bully Call of Duty.
There's the language I was looking for, Alex.
Modern Warfare is Call of Duty, and
Don't
Battlefield
just
is a
insult.
different game.
Don't just insult Call of Duty. It's right. Insult every military first-person shooter.
They are garbage. They are clunky. I do not want to move like I am in mud in every single military-based game I play. I am tired of it. I want to be fast on my feet. I don't like realism in games, Brett. I do this for escapism. I hate the real world.
I have nothing to add to this.
That was the most incredible. Like, if we ever had like the YouTube community that would do like 001 animated or something, that would be the first one.
I'm picturing it right now.
The famous COD rant.
Well, fun story. The very first video I ever did on YouTube, at this point, I believe 10 years ago, if not more, on my channel, little middle school me. Even that might have been high. Oh God, that was middle school. All right,
my eye is twitching.
I uploaded
from this.
a rant about multiplayer communities in Call of Duty. That video is the only video I ever made that got like over 1,000 views.
That might be the most adorable thing I have ever heard in my entire life.
Because the entire time I was being like super positive, little squeaky boy, going like, I really think they need to be just politer. It's a loud game.
Oh. That just melts my heart. That just melts my heart.
Brett, get us away from this hellscape of Call of Duty.
Oh God, I'm looking at my list and I see
God.
2 other shooter games. We're not gonna go there yet. We're gonna go for overrated, but an underground classic nonetheless that I had to make a pit stop at on my quest to recoup my time lost on having not played JRPGs before. People on the PS1, they talk about their Final Fantasies, and that's it. And they also talk about a little big, stupid, dumb, stinky, dumby game called Legend of Dragoon.
Oh my
And
god,
I
Brett.
went into this game expecting the greatest thing of all time, the Final Fantasy killer that it was marketed as, because people, and there are a few of these on my list, and I think Breath of the Wild falls into that also, that people would just say, oh, this game made this part of my life. This made my childhood. This made my year. This made my life. It's the best game I've ever played. It's incredible. Legend of Dragoon freaking blows. I cannot believe it. It is so bad. I can't stand it. Disc 1 was like 25 hours, and I will not go further because that was 25 hours wasted on garbage voice acting and like the most convoluted and stupid story I've ever had the displeasure of trying to read, because it was terrible and it was poorly translated on top of it, so that didn't help. And it's like I was super ready to be into it because, most like turn-based RPGs, like you either wait for the timer to run out for you to do the thing, or you just wait for the other guy to do the thing so that you can do the thing. But Legend of Dragoon does a special thing. This is what Sony thought was going to kill Final Fantasy, ladies and gentlemen. They thought that, what if we made every single move that you do, you only do one move at a time for an attack, and it's a combo, and this combo is a semi rhythm game quick time event. And these combos, the better ones, quote unquote, go on for like 20 inputs, and if you mess one up,
Ugh.
that is the last input of that combo, and it does not do the full damage that it is supposed to do. You can only have one combo equipped. That is the only way that you attack in the game. And the little shrinking square that comes up on the screen to tell you when to press the button is like the most unclear, delayed thing I've ever seen for like a timed input. It doesn't make any sense. It's useless if you're trying to figure out the time doing it that way. It is absolutely useless. And I did 25 hours of that, and I will never touch it again.
Brett, I feel like I should have a retort for you, because Legend of Dragoon is a game that, in theory, I should like a lot, based on everything you just said. But I've never played it, so I can't.
Well,
Therefore, I must believe everything you've said. That it is terrible. That
It
just
is
the
not
worst.
fun. It is
And by the
not
way,
fun
it's
at
selling
all.
for $140 on eBay right now.
What? How did I get mine for like $20? How? Don't buy that. That's way too much. Throw it away.
All right. Thanks for that wonderful, enlightening thing, Brett.
You're welcome.
Now I'm going to talk about a little known sequence of games that happen. This is really just an entire genre. But I'm going to call out like two specific games. The first was DayZ. That was the start of this trend in video games that I like to call the meter-based survival. Then, of course, came Ark Survival Evolved. That really just hammered it home. And I even recently tried to play a little game by the name of Conan Exiles, which I'd heard fixes most of the issues and is far more fun to play and lets you like free build a bunch of stuff. You can free build a bunch of stuff, but it's just as jank and rough as all the others, because they're all the same. Every single one of them is the same thing. These survival meter games, they're all the same thing, all right? And it's not fun. Minecraft got noticeably worse when they added hunger mechanics that reduce your health. Hunger mechanics in themselves aren't bad. What's bad is when you have a hunger mechanic that detracts from a set value and just makes you worse or kills you. It's just not fun. Now, there are games that can have things that aren't fun intentionally. I think DayZ might fall in that category. Escape from Tarkov kind of does. But For the average person, and for me, it's terrible. And the thing that really gets me is this is where the From Software argument comes in of, if we had a difficulty selection that would ruin the intended player experience. Well, as a video game designer, let me tell you something about the intended player experience of a video game. The goal of designing a video game with an intended player experience is that intended player experience is going to be the best for the player. Not for the person making the game, not for other people. It's for the audience of the game, and it's for everyone that can get their grubby little hands on it, because games are about making money. All right? And guess what? Guess what these meter-based survival games do, Brett? Because I heard you there for a moment, sitting there in your stunned silence. That meter-based survival games ruin this. They take this concept and they just decide, well, our players are all masochists. They really all just gotta hate themselves. And you know what's happened? It's become true. They've succeeded. The players of these games are so disillusioned to the fact that it's boring and bad that they are stuck doing it. I watch Double O on Radio's own Ben every day go play Escape from Tarkov. And what do I ask at the end of the day? Did you have fun? And his answer is never yes.
It's like me when I play Destiny.
There's my rant. There it is. It's done. Survival. Any meter-based game with survival has become objectively worse. Not objectively, subjectively worse. Because of course, games are for anyone. If you enjoy Escape from Tarkov, please tell me, because I really have never heard, and anyone has.
And then go to therapy.
I'm in a group of people, like a Discord group, that also like all plays Tarkov, and they never have a good time. And when they talk about it,
Exactly.
It reads like they are speaking in a different language that is not based around Latin at all. It feels like they're like, this is the amount of abbreviations and the things that things are called. It blows my mind that anyone can read those words and get information out of it.
And I love a good fighting game. I love a good meter, especially when they pop up on screen and let me do something cool at the end. But when the meter is just ticking down to inevitable doom, there's better ways to do that, generally. Especially than having it be a thing. Because like these hunger meters could be fine. But no, every single game has to tune them so that you constantly need to be aware of the fact that if you don't stuff some berries or a can of juice in your mouth, your character's going to keel over in 2 minutes and just collapse.
It's just like real life. You don't understand.
I'm going to go cram some berries and a can of juice in my mouth now.
Rant's over. I did it.
Good job.
I don't think I'm on the same level as you guys right now. I came into this with way more chill than everyone else.
Oh, another thing about Call of Duty games.
Go for it, Alex.
The more photorealistic a game gets doesn't mean it's better.
He's right, you know.
That's every
really
video game.
is.
That's any first party game of most major publishers.
Yeah,
Wyatt.
but I still wanted to pick on Call of Duty. Anyway.
Wyatt, please tell me you've got a follow-up to something. You either need to mellow us out or get us even more angry. You've got to do one of the two.
I can't just coast in the middle anymore. I wanted to save this one until last, but y'all seem to want to get angry. So
I mean, we're getting close.
Say...
We're at, for reference of the hosts, we've got about half an hour left. So
all right, then I'm gonna throw a Ghost of Tsushima out there. I think it's kind of overrated.
Wyatt, this is what I wanted.
Experience.
I know.
Button?
You were
Ryan,
you were waiting for this. You both were waiting for this. Ghost of Tsushima is a very good game. And I think it's a very good game because I have fun with the game, despite the fact that it has just a terrible camera.
You are insane.
I think it sucks. I think it gets in your way. I legitimately feel like it sided with the Mongolians a long time ago, and it is just a spy that is attempting to prevent you from making any progress in the game because it is terrible. Also, there are too many missions that feel exactly the same, even though narratively they're trying to fulfill completely different purposes. I think that while I think the multiplayer is fun, I feel as though for me there are just too many like bugs. First of all, bugs. You all got to remember the experience I had playing this game, which was very weirdly buggy, unlike literally everyone else.
And
but I'm
to
just going off of
reiterate, so to make Wyatt's argument here stronger, we have seen video of the bugs he had. They're real.
They are real,
Somehow.
and they're not small. They are very, very annoying. There was literally a bug where it was very early in the game. I had no kind of ranged weaponry whatsoever. Someone with a spear, an enemy I was fighting, got caught up on a rock that I could not climb on top of, and he could hit me with his spear, and I couldn't hit him back because he was too high up on a rock, and I had nothing to do against him. So I had to restart because the mission was to like kill all of the Mongol in that area. So just stupid stuff like that throughout the entire game. I haven't talked. Look, I already said at the camera. I cannot emphasize enough how much I really hate that camera. I was trying to explain this to Brett as best as I could, but it's a system where your attacks are on the face buttons and there's no lock on, which means a lot of the time you have to decide between spinning the camera so that most of the enemies are in view or attacking someone. And sometimes that can really get in the way of like the flow of a battle where you sometimes have to like walk away so you can turn the camera without getting hit off screen. The other problem is that because there's no lock on, there are many, many times when I'm near an enemy, he's like right in front of me and I'm going to attack him, and Jin thinks that I want to hit an enemy that's like 2 miles away from me in the complete opposite direction. And if I'm doing an attack that takes resolve, it just drains my resolve for absolutely nothing and just kind of puts me in the middle of nowhere, often right in front of an archer that's about to hit me. I think it does a less than stellar job of just making sure that it's targeting the right enemy at the right time. There's also many times where I think it is targeting an enemy, and then I do an attack that just kind of goes right next to the enemy and doesn't actually like register. And it was very annoying. Also, many times where a grappling hook wouldn't register, even though I'm mashing right trigger desperately trying to get it to attach to something. Just a lot of small things that would have been fine in isolation, but were just throughout the entire game, and they just kind of all piled on top of each other, and it was very annoying. Also, it has a very disappointing villain that I think they could have done a lot more with. His boss fight and the kind of large scale battle leading up to it was very, very underwhelming, and I think there's a lot that they could have done to make that more exciting and more interesting.
What? That was a proper rant. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah.
Not
You don't
not
get a
sarcastic.
compliment from me.
Not a
I
sarcastic.
know you
clap.
don't. I know I don't. I never
That
get
was
anything
very
from
well
you
put.
other than hatred.
Look, if you want
Oh.
to know our detailed opinions about Tsushima, we did an entire episode on Tsushima a while back. It's actually
Now-
very good.
Now, my thoughts in that episode are mostly how I feel now. However, I give all the props in the world to Sucker Punch because I think they're a great studio. Because not only did they fix a lot of they gave us like a gear loadout system, which was great. They gave us an entire multiplayer suite, a good multiplayer suite, completely for free with no microtransactions, and I respect the hell out of them for that. And I love Sucker Punch. I just think this is a really good game that kind of got blown out of proportion, and I think people liked it a little bit more after Last of Us 2 left a bad taste in their mouth.
All right,
And with that, someone's knocking on my door,
Alex.
so I'll be right back.
Alex, you gotta bring us back from this insanity of Wyatt not liking Ghost of Tsushima,
Okay.
which I can
I'll
say
just-
because he can't reply right now.
I'll see what
Leave it to him to drop that bomb and then leave.
I'll see what I can do. What's on my list that's different enough from? Oh yeah. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is garbage.
Oh, that's just. I think that's just. I accepted that.
Oh. Oh,
I
I
don't know if
thought
that's the
people loved it.
truth.
Well, Valhalla does a lot of things good, but it also is a game that I don't think I could ever finish, ever. Even like I play
It-
lengthy
it-
games, but it's just too much.
I I enjoyed the mini games in it, at like the poetic rap battles and things like that, and parts of the story. But it almost immediately gets way too samey, with just the missions, the overall story bit. It does not really enhance how missions were handled in previous things or how progression was handled, in my opinion,
I
from
was
Odyssey.
I was away for a second. What are we talking about?
Assassin's Creed Valhalla is Garbo.
Oh, okay. I somewhat agree with you.
Oh,
That's
Yeah, I
what we
feel like
all
that's the
said.
preserving opinion here. Of
Crap.
like, that's probably
I-
about like 70% right.
I mean, look, I mean, it must have done something right because I did every single like campaign for every area, and I
how?
beat the entire story, and I spent like 120 something hours playing it, so I'm doing something right. I just think it's got a good combat loop going, and I
I
think Ryan and I can agree it's got some crunchy combat that's quite a bit of fun.
Look, I'm gonna crush your dreams here, Wyatt. I think there's a key miscommunication between how I feel about the combat and how you feel about the combat. I don't think the
Mhm.
combat is crunchy. I think the animations are crunchy. The
Yes.
animation work is solid. Combat itself is like mid tier at best. It's pretty
Yes.
good for an Assassin's Creed game in that I think it does feel
Yeah.
it's got a lot of weight behind it that Assassin's Creed often doesn't, but it also
Mhm.
feels the most clunky out of any recent Assassin's Creed, which I think was pretty consistent feedback from reviews as well. Of like,
I do agree with you.
I think it's better than what they had in Origin and Odyssey, but I think it's definitely not the best.
See, that's where I disagree, purely because I don't know if there's like a technical term for it, but Valhalla has a lot of like it kind of artificially moves your character around to like hit an enemy and stuff like that, whereas Odyssey feels a lot more free flowing. And I think I just preferred how Odyssey was a lot less like it was a lot less concerned with making sure you're in the right spot for something and you were just kind of moving around more
I mean,
organically.
Alex, I think Wyatt arrived and immediately took over your conversation. That you got to continue trashing.
I'm really sorry.
Val-
Please continue.
Well, you know what else? Besides, because I had two possible ones for this. I also don't think Assassin's Creed 2 deserves all of its praise.
That
Oh,
was
now
another game
that
on my
is a
list.
much hotter take.
That was another game on my list because I completely agree with you.
Come on, I think once it's still it. Like, yeah, one was garbage as far as how clunky its mechanics were,
Mhm.
and people keep praising two for how it improved. It improved on them so slightly.
I think it's the first good Assassin's
It
Creed
did.
game.
It,
I don't think it's the first. I don't think it's the best one.
it did
But
still make an improvement on them, but not nearly as much as like 3, 4. Oh, wait, hang on.
Brotherhood was really good in my
Yeah,
opinion.
Yeah, two's
That's
like
where I think-
weird unnumbered sequels are probably the best games in the franchise, I think. Next to Black Flag. But yeah.
Mhm.
Although I do disagree that 2 and 1 are overrated because I think the key thing from Assassin's Creed 2, I actually no, maybe 2 is a little overrated. I think 2 might get too much credit, at least recently. But 1 and 2 were like, we got to think back to the years those released. There was nothing even relatively close to those games.
Yeah.
Like I think
Well, yeah,
that's where that comes around.
It's one of those things where I respect it for it being so different and kind of pushing the industry forward in the sense that we had never seen anything like it before. It was so new, and I think a lot of games definitely took a lot and learned a lot
But
from
you see why the
Assassin's
difference
Creed
is
1 and 2.
I'm willing to
but
say Assassin's Creed 1 was a great game, and
Oh. I
don't
that's
think
going to
it's
make you
very
pissed
good.
off.
yeah, I don't think it's very good.
I haven't played it
personally.
in 8 years, but
Neither have I, but I didn't like it 8 years ago.
I'm going to choose to believe that was just you being a child. All right, Alex, anything
Well, I'm gonna
else on
choose-
Assassin's
I'm going
Creed?
to choose to believe that this is you being a child. Shut up.
anything else on Assassin's Creed Valhalla or 2?
Either of them, Alex. This is your time. This is your
Ah!
moment. Wow. He's deflated.
She
Yeah.
shrank and died.
Yeah, it's
That Call of Duty rant took a lot out of you.
it did.
That's
It-
understandable. It was pretty epic.
It was pretty great, yeah.
Yeah, no, my main thing with 2 was, people keep on saying how much it improved the mechanics, where, the offshoots still did so much more with them.
I think there
and
was
I
a
don't
big
think
improvement. Go ahead.
I don't think that the natural progression of Assassin's Creed was supposed to go the way that Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla did. I think that it's I wouldn't go so far as to consider Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla spin-off games. Not just because they're not numbered, but because of the completely different combat style. But because I think it went in like a completely different evolutionary chain than where the mechanics were originally going from the improvement from 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's more of more just of an observation, really, though.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. We might do some weird Assassin's Creed themed stuff in the future, because I think whenever the next one gets announced, we're gonna have a lot to talk about. So, Brett,
Yeah.
please deliver us from this Ubisoft themed roller coaster ride.
Well, here's the thing. You can choose for it to continue being an Ubisoft themed roller coaster ride, because I know we don't have too much time left, so I'm going to ask everyone else here to pick from A, B, R, or X for my last one that I will be.
I mean, I gotta go
playing
for
with Brett.
X. You can't throw an X on that list, and
We have one X. What does everyone else say?
I'll go for X.
Well, X wins no matter what you say, Wyatt. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay, well then it's
Yeah.
not going to be a Ubisoft cringe train anymore, because this is actually the game that I am in the middle of playing now. Like, not right now, but when this is over, I will go back to doing that.
Was our Rainbow Six?
Yes.
I thought so.
Which I would have trouble talking about without cursing. So
I mean, I already let the F-bomb slip once tonight.
exactly. That means we can't do it again.
PG-13 rules.
Exactly. Xenosaga Episode 1.
There it is.
The big boy, Monolith Soft's like first big thing after all those boys left Square after making Xenogears and kind of being made out to be a little sad. I was super hyped because Xenogears was awesome, and people talk about this trilogy, this Xenosaga trilogy, as if it's again like one of the best like RPGs ever. It'll change your life. And really, it's just kind of hilarious in how sad and bad it is. And it's not even like it's dated, because there are games that have came out before it that are just do all the things that it does better. Like the 3D looks bad for the time. The mechanics for like the battles and fighting, like I'm 10 hours in and I'm still discovering new sub menus of techniques that I can learn that nobody told me about. And I don't think they're going to tell me because I am 10 hours in. Like thinking about it, just having as many options as possible for the things that a character can learn or do in combat is like, oh, that's pretty cool. So many options. It's great. But in practice, when it's just spread over a million black and white menus and there's like 6 different kinds of XP and my brain
no.
is melting and I'm only held into the story at all because Mecha Hatsune Miku comes on screen every once in a while with a giant triple barrel chain gun and just blows something up at like just at random. And I just go, okay, that was cool. And then the story goes to the other characters, and I just go, I don't care. These bad things are happening to mostly bad people that deserve them. So I don't care that the sad music is playing. Also, speaking of music, because Ryan will know what I'm talking about, Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, some of the best soundtracks ever. Xenogears also, all by the same guy. He does Xenosaga Episode 1 also. Every single, like, overworld walking around, non-fighting, non-cutscene, like, area, like, playing the game, silence. There's no music for these sections. It's
Not
just
even
the sound.
Look,
ambient
Brett, we
noise?
just didn't have the technology.
Final Fantasy IX came out a year prior. And it
Really?
has some. Yes, this is 2001.
I forgot. I thought this was like 1999 for some reason.
No, it's a PS2 game.
Oh no.
This is early PS2, and it's the guy that did like some of the greatest soundtracks ever, and they just, I guess, didn't use him. I'm just like, maybe they didn't get him to do a lot, because I know after Chrono Trigger and Xenogears especially, like he was hospitalized for like overworking. So I was like, maybe he just didn't
Oh,
want to do as much. The soundtrack has 40 songs in it, and it's 2 hours long. So where is it?
Where'd it go?
I don't understand what's going on.
Where are you hiding it?
And this is a trilogy, and 1 is supposed to be good, and 2 is supposed to be worse, and 3 is supposed to be great. I don't know how 2 can get worse than this, but I am so eager to
But
find
Brett,
out, because this is hilarious.
You've still got like 30 hours of Xenosaga 1.
I know.
Maybe it'll get
I
better.
know.
Maybe it'll get way better. Who knows?
oh
Who
boy.
knows? But right now, it is overrated as all hell.
Look, I do gotta say, I love how different video games can be, because as soon as you started describing 6x EXP bars, I got real excited.
But they're not explained to you. No one tells you what they do.
Even better. Even better.
Like,
You people
So-
are insane.
right. This is the game that you were describing as people thought it would be the Final Fantasy killer, right?
No, that was Legend of Dragoon. That
Oh.
was like
I was
the
just,
last
because
one I talked about.
it sounds like it sounds like they wanted to be as confusing as Final Fantasy's narrative, but they put it in the UI instead of the story.
I mean, it certainly makes sense, but these are also people from Square that we're talking about, so that also could have just been what they did anyway.
All right. You good, Brett? Is that your rant done? Because I got a doozy I'm going to hit everyone
You
with.
good, bro?
Oh,
You good, bro?
I'm scared.
I'm
Get
gonna-
faced with a doozy.
I'm going to anger... I don't know about Brett, but I'm going to anger at least Alex and Wyatt with this one.
Oh, alrighty.
So there's a little-known studio that we've talked about in the past, and Wyatt and I generally, and Alex, have a lot of praise for this studio, a lot. But I do think they are highly overrated, and that is Naughty Dog.
I knew it.
Now, Wyatt
Go
probably could
get
feel
him.
this coming from our Last of Us discussions, but
Uh-huh.
I think Naughty Dog gets a ton of credit for things that they shouldn't get a ton of credit for, and doesn't get a ton of credit for things that they should. So I don't think these games are bad. I love all the Naughty Dog games. I'm working my way through Uncharted 2 right now, and it's great. But there's a big thing that people praise Naughty Dog for their storytelling and their innovative way of presenting narrative in video games, and that is just a load of absolute
Now hold on.
bollocks. Now,
No,
Wyatt,
hold on.
I'm not done. I'm not done, Wyatt. I got some stuff
You,
to go
you are
through.
accusing me of something that I've never said, but please continue.
I wasn't talking about you, Wyatt. I'm talking about the games industry in general. This is what people say about Naughty Dog games.
Okay. All right.
Legitimately, like go
Proceed.
look up any, especially Uncharted, like the original
Because I
Uncharted.
was going to agree with you on that point.
So, so why am I like what I'm about to say then? If he thinks that statement's true, but the thing that gets me with Naughty Dog, especially Last of Us 2, is that people tend to praise these games for how they force the player to like see a different side or to experience things they
what?
don't
so
like.
much.
To
Not
see a
with
different side of
Uncharted.
themselves or like experience feelings that you wouldn't experience otherwise. I think a movie or a TV show would have been infinitely better for the to get the feelings they wanted to get out of Last of Us Part 2, especially in the way that they did. No spoilers, obviously, and I do think Last of Us Part 2 is a very well constructed game, but there are some major problems, and to me, people don't tend to comment about these things where it doesn't take advantage of the fact that it's a video game like at all. Every single time Naughty Dog tries to do something impressive with narrative, what they're doing is taking control away from the player and moving it to be more like film. Or they're doing things that are intentional, like psychological manipulation, where my biggest hang up in The Last of Us Part 2 is that there are moments in the game where, no spoilers for this, but you're fighting someone and then they like put their gun down and go, I'm sorry, please let me live. Now, the game makes it very clear later on that these people aren't bad people, right? So, why then do I have, if I put my gun away and walk away, there is no other option except to kill them. There's no other option. You still gotta murder these people. So, Wyatt, I hear you having conniptions over there, but you need to listen. You need to listen. This is my Tsushima camera, all right? It is, to me, such a big problem that it legitimately killed a lot of what Last of Us 2 was trying to do for me, because that's when where your illusion falls away. Like, a game like Dishonored handles that kind of interaction between player and like morality, I think, infinitely better than how Last of Us 2 handles it, because Last of Us 2 doesn't have any kind of like scale or measure or any other option than to just be bad at points in the game, which I despise. That's the kind of thing where I'm like, you can't make an argument about this being a like helpful perspective to have, because if you're trying to make a point with this, it's not working, at least for me. And I think for a lot of people it didn't work. So there's a whole can of worms with Naughty Dog, and that applies to all their games, not just Last of Us Part 2, but Last of Us Part 2 is most recent. So that's it. Rant on. Before Professor, I have more of a conniption.
Professor. I have my hand raised, Professor.
Silence,
Professor Littleton.
We don't have cameras on today. Why? I can't see your hand raised.
That's why I said my hand was raised for your convenience.
You can put up the little yellow zoom hand.
So I want to talk about. I want to talk about that for a second. Look, I totally get and respect your opinion, but it's also wrong. No, no, I'm just kidding. My thing with that, because there's a lot of moments like that where, oh, the person puts down the gun, but you don't have a choice in, like, you know, you still have to shoot him. There's a lot of story moments like that too, which I'm obviously not going to spoil. But the way I saw it is that it is and I talked about this in our Games Club episode, so go check that out. I talked about how a lot of this game deals with perspective, and not just between the perspectives of the different player, but of the different characters, but also the perspective of the player. And one of my favorite parts was that is something that you didn't agree to do, but it's not condemning you, it's condemning Ellie. And what's going on is that she, throughout the story, again, not spoiling anything, she is constantly it's sort of separating herself from her loved ones. She's becoming estranged from all of them, and that includes you as someone who loves Ellie from the first game. And so it's Ellie doing these things, and it's not condemning you as a player, it's condemning Ellie, and it's beginning to separate you two because she's starting to separate herself from everyone around her. And I thought that was a really interesting choice, and I thought that it did a great job of bringing the player into her like crazed.
Well, see, Wyatt. So I agree with you, but I think you're missing where I think my issue is with those specific moments I was talking about. It's not that the game is making the character you're playing out to have different priorities than you as the player. I love that, but what's happening is that the game is presenting you the illusion of a choice. Right? There's the illusion of a choice, and what happens if you
see it that way?
Well, let me finish. If you don't participate in that choice, it becomes a video game again, right? Because you as a player made the choice to not do that, and the game then just continues and it breaks sequence. So there's not like a specific thing that happens if you walk away with your gun. It's just the person turns around, picks up the gun, and shoots at you. So you're like, well, what am I going to do now? So you shoot them. And then what happens is their friend will yell their name and be like, oh, why are you such a monster? And I'm just sitting there confused, because the feeling that the game wants me to feel at that moment is conflicting, right? It wants me to be conflicted about what I'm doing. But because I'm not on the same page with the game about what they're doing, it doesn't work. What instead they're getting from me is just blanket confusion and breaking my immersion of it being a video game. Because I'm like, this is a choice that you are presenting to me, right? That when you give the player that option to not continue firing, you are giving the player a choice to make. And when the player then makes that choice and you completely disrespect what the choice was, you've broken the illusion of the player having any agency, which is how games work. So it, to me, completely takes me out of it.
So because I've run into a couple of those where like, oh, I won't shoot, and then I didn't see that as a choice to the player. I saw that as, oh, this guy's trying to pull a fast one on me, and it's less about this is a moment where we're giving you a choice, because Naughty Dog doesn't really give you that in a story sense. They give you that in a gameplay sense, especially Last of Us 2, but not in a story sense. And so because I know that about them, I never saw that as a story choice. I saw that as kind of interesting enemy AI being like trying to pull a fast one on you. Like,
see, and Wyatt, you just proved my point, because you just spoke about it being enemy AI and not a character in that moment, right? Because I have no believability, especially with the information they give you at the second half of that game, that is how that situation would go down. None whatsoever. I don't think that's what would happen. So that's where it breaks, right? It's Naughty Dog
I'm not
not
with you
being
on
as
that,
good as
but
they could be.
But I'm not with you on that, but I get where you're coming from with that.
Naughty Dog, get your stuff together. Do better.
It's funny that you're the one asking for more like player agency in terms of like story, and I'm not. I'm usually the one that's asking for more of it.
Well,
but I don't want all of my games to.
It's not asking for more player
have
agency. It's asking for them to pick a side. It's the illusion of that choice being presented to the player just serves no purpose. Because if the player makes that choice, the only outcome is that if they make the choice that the Naughty Dog, the developers, don't see as the correct choice for Ellie, their experience is now of broken.
But again, you're viewing that as like this like choice that they're giving you. It's just the AI playing tricks on you. It's not. It's the enemy playing tricks on you. It's not this like choice you're supposed to make.
But it's not the enemy. Why? Because they. Brett, go ahead. I think you're on the same wavelength with me here.
It's also like, if it was just that way in the game and they didn't say anything about it, then I think I would be more up to hearing this debate be a debate. But from the amount of words that have come out of the devs' mouths about how the choices they make you make and how bad you feel about the choices you have to make in The Last of Us 2, and there isn't one, it's just making you feel bad because a sad thing happened on screen. That's what movies do. Games are where the choice comes in. Games are where in Metal Gear Solid 2 you can hold the gun up to the Russian guy in a PS2 game and he'll put his hands up and you can either shoot him in the head or trank him, and that is literally the simplest version of that, but it is the same thing in the game that is earlier, so you can do it.
But why can't games have both of those options? Like, why not be more like just movie-esque? Why can't they be that?
I think all of Naughty Dog's games, not all of them, not Crash Bandicoot, definitely tend towards the more cinematic aspect of blending,
Oh, 100%.
trying to blend movies and games together. So yeah, Ryan, you're absolutely right with talking about the illusion of choice, because I've seen documentaries on how they developed levels in Uncharted 2 to give you the illusion of choice. It's like, I don't know why I'm going to this visualization, but I describe it as a lemon, or the outline of a lemon. You start at one place, you can take two, maybe even 4 or 5 paths, but they all will end up in the exact same place at the end.
I mean, illusion of choice isn't bad as long as it's abstracted and hidden from the player. What I think,
which it is not,
happens in that specific situation is that it becomes, well, this choice just doesn't serve a purpose. I think the purpose they thought it would serve is that the AI would feel more realistic because it's making additional actions here, but because they didn't go far enough with it, it kind of breaks that for me. Like, it's where Red Dead 2 is a game that, like, we can talk about forever because of how all the weird stuff it does. But it has an AI that does the same thing, but there's a lot more different outcomes that can happen. Because, like, once I learned that every single time I drop that gun or turn around, the enemy's just gonna go get back up and shoot me, it's not a factor anymore. But in Red Dead 2, an enemy might actually just leave. They might stay there. They might let me take their stuff. There's a lot more that can happen. So,
I mean, you could also argue that, like,
can you imagine
this person's putting their gun down, they're surrendering, you shoot them anyway, right? You could also argue that it's like almost in a sense training you to be just like Joel from the first game, which is a theme of the second game, which I'm not going to get too deeply into. But Joel in the first game was like, yeah, that guy's not in trouble. This is an ambush. We're just gonna run him over. Right? Like if the game does that enough and it conditions you to like, no, these guys don't want to show any mercy, just shoot him in the head. It's kind of conditioning you into a way of like thinking like a survivor in that world. Right? At least I think so.
I think that's not a thing the first game did better. I think it's more of a factor of the first game being more of a video game and less of a narrative experience, as Neil Druckmann would put it. So that's my stance on that. But Wyatt, we gotta move on. We need to do one final round to end the show. And I do want to reiterate that, like, I love Naughty Dog's games. I just think they need to pick a side and make what they're gonna make and not put the illusion there, because especially when it's visible to the player, because it breaks immersion. It gets you thrown out. So Wyatt, I need you to hit me with your hardest hitting little bit.
Tsushima was kind of
most overrated. Well, it can be.
But I do have another one.
Just say something.
Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think, is pretty overrated. Now, this is a relatively new game, and so I think its reception over time will change. But from what I understand, anyone that was looking forward to this and was waiting a very long time for this seemed to be very satisfied with it. And while I definitely enjoyed the game quite a bit in a lot of areas.
Wyatt, I want you to give some important context before you continue. This was your first Final Fantasy game that you fully completed, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just wanted to give context for people that are about to get up in arms in the audience.
That's fair. I think it's kind of a mess in a lot of ways. It's the kind of game where when you want to praise a feature, you're like, it's great, but like I think visually the game is great, except for when it's not. I think that the characters are really cool, except for when they're really poorly written and kind of obnoxious and not voice acted particularly well at times. I think the story is really cool until it devolves into a giant mess of stupid gobbledygook nonsense. I mean, actually, I have no issues with the combat. That was really well done. Well done, guys. But no, I just think that I had such a roller coaster of like going out of really enjoying it and then being kind of bored and then also just being kind of confused that I don't really understand. Like I feel like if I waited this long for something like this, I would be a little bit disappointed with the outcome personally.
Now, I gotta add the one stipulation here, and this is very minor spoilers if you haven't played or ever heard of the original Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII Remake, not a remake. It's roughly a sequel. Roughly, kind of. Why there's a lot of other reasons as to why it's a sequel that I haven't told you because they're extremely spoiler heavy. Mm-hmm. It is anyone that has played the first game and plays this, especially if they've seen all the weird Final Fantasy VII crazy stuff that Japan loves to do of having these weird out of game canon things happen, then I think the game makes a lot more sense from that perspective. But I totally get why Wyatt thinks a lot of it's overrated because it's a JRPG.
And also, I would make the argument that a perspective like mine, for someone that has never played the series before but is coming into a recent remake or reimagining of the series, is a very important perspective to have, because that's partially the goal of a typical remake or a remaster, is to introduce it to a new audience. And so I think people who've never played it before, it's an important perspective to have in terms of like how well does it introduce new people to that story or to that world. So
I mean, I think this is coming from the one thing I do want to think. I can't speak English right now. The Last of Us rant really just took it out of me. But with Final Fantasy VII Remake, the thing I want to kind of emphasize with it is I don't think this is a game that's intended to be loved by everyone. I think what Final Fantasy VII Remake is Square Enix writing a love letter to fans of the OG game saying we are still the same Square Enix, while simultaneously being, I think this is a swan song for Kitase and a lot of the original team of Final Fantasy VII of Nomura and Nobuo Uematsu doing a lot of music. I think this is their swan song because those guys are old now.
Oh no!
Like a lot of them are in their 50s or 60s, and this is probably the last franchise they're going to work on. That's the thing that I think people don't often realize. I don't think the point of 7 is to be a great game for people. I think that's a side effect of if you love JRPGs, you're probably going to really like 7. But I think it's a lot more is that this is a game that I think Square Enix is making more for themselves and not necessarily, and fans of like the original, and not necessarily to get more people in. But I think that's also the definition of overrated. So it's a good pick because I think this is definitely a situation where like audience hype for 7 Remake probably made it sell to a lot of people that never played the original, including myself. But on me, it had the opposite effect because I love JRPGs. I went back and I'm playing the original now. So I can fully experience the zaniness that I've been told about. But yeah, I think it's an interesting scenario.
Mm-hmm.
But fits the definition of overrated that we're going for.
I mean, there you go.
At the same time, Wyatt, you're wrong, and everything about 7 Remake is perfect. So look, there wasn't enough anger at the end of this for as much of a heated topic as this was.
Look, I think just Ryan, when you and I are tired, I just think we are in complete opposite moods. Where I'm like too tired to be frustrated at something, and I just want everyone to get along.
I want to sow
happy and have a
chaos.
good time.
All right. With this, we've done our rounds. We've done our diligence of making a podcast episode and having, well, not fun.
A time. We
having
have
a time. This is really horrendous, all of you. Horrible job.
Oh, you want to know one
Did
of
you
my
say that
last
this is an overrated episode of the podcast?
You want to know one of the ones that I held back on because I was getting tired and I didn't want people screaming?
Give us a teaser, Alex.
now?
Give us a teaser.
Do you, Ryan?
Give us a teaser.
Warframe.
You know what? I know your opinions on Warframe, and I think you're right for the kind of player you are. But
oh, boo! There wasn't enough frustration, Ryan. Boo!
But we gotta be done. We gotta be done. We gotta end it. No, Alex. You know what? Alex, we're going right now. I'm walking over to wherever you are in the planet, and I'm gonna sit you down and force you to play through the second dream, and then you're gonna look up at me and realize that you were wrong all along.
I want you to get up, Ryan. I want you to get up out of your chair. I want you to get out of your room, and I want you to walk over to my floor.
Fight!
I want you to knock on my door.
I thought Brett was gonna.
We gotta do shoutouts. We've hit the point of insanity. We're gonna keep going forever if we don't stop. So
the insanity started before the episode, Ryan. Let's be real.
Well, all right. Look, I was just watching a WWE episode where someone called the Velveteen Dream showed up, and I really wasn't ready for it. So.
And he commented on that poor lady's hair.
It was fantastic. I'll show Brett the clip after this, but this means shoutouts. So I'm gonna start because I just said it. Shout out to the Velveteen Dream because man, I love wrestling personas that are just so insane that they don't make sense. There's no logic to them, and they just have a weird name. Where this man calls himself the Velveteen Dream Experience. He doesn't use a name. It's wonderful, especially when surrounded by all the people with actual names that are just boring. So
he also has hair like Guile from Street Fighter.
Absolutely, it's beautiful. Who else is ready? Someone's got to have one.
I got one. You know what isn't overrated at all? The Tron Legacy soundtrack, because every single track in that score absolutely bangs. There isn't a single bad track. It is all incredible, and Disney was kind enough to attach a movie to the soundtrack. It was beautiful.
All right, Alex or Brett, who's got one?
I got one. Yeah. Shout because I have my D&D notes right here next to me. Shout out to Lulu, the very precious elephant thing.
Wonderful. Brett, I feel like this is your time.
Well, it has to be because there's nothing else. So, shout out to Near Replicant 1 point whatever for very quickly skyrocketing up to being one of the best games I've ever played.
Ooh, overrated.
And no, underrated. Not enough people are playing it.
I could have gone for that one too. It has too many endings.
That's not a problem. And whenever someone else on this dang old podcast finishes it, we got to do a game.
Oh, it's gonna happen. I can tell you, Brett, it's gonna happen.
Yes,
I'm slow burning it because the PC version's got some problems right now.
Oh no, damn.
And it's specifically when you plug a controller on or off, it just starts stuttering. And because I don't have a wired controller right now, and the way the Wi-Fi works for them or the Bluetooth works, is that occasionally it just does that, which means like once every 3 minutes I just get like 10 frames.
Oof.
It's sad, but I'm looking forward to getting a wired controller so I can play.
Yeah, really, jeez.